Hello everyone. Back for another Monday night edition of the podcast. Paco is back with me. Hello, Paco.
Hello.
How are you
Hello,
doing?
guys.
All good?
Everything good? Yeah, sir. Everything good. Well, we are with these regulations, so now we need to be on Zoom rather than speaking to each other. But
It's not as fun, but
yeah,
you do
exactly.
what you have to do, don't you? So, right, we're going to round up a few of the most interesting stories from the last week, and we're going to start with one of the most interesting. Paco, you're going to tell us all about it. We have a new government in Italy.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mess. We had spoken in the past edition about how the old government seems to have the number to continue operating. In fact, what happened is that those numbers were not there. So basically, there was the crisis, and a new government. Well, the president of the Italian Republic entrusted Mario Draghi, former president of the European Central Bank, to form a new government. Now, of course, Draghi is a character of relevance at the European level, so has the trust of all the European institutions and of many countries, of course, because of his experience. So the logic behind him being in charge to form the government is that we couldn't go to the elections in this situation of with the pandemic and all the rest going on. So like to have a sort of half technical, half political government for about 1 year, 2 years. That is the idea. But then we will see how long they can actually last.
They want to only put Draghi in for 1 year now.
Well, it's not clear. So it's a really complicated situation, because what is a government of national solidarity in a way. He's asking to all the parties to participate. So far, he collected a lot of consent, even from the right wing. Well, he is mainly center. I would say he's a center man, but more, if we had to choose, he's more on the right than on the left. No, he's not the traditional liberal economist for free market or neoliberal economist. He is in favor of state intervention as a president of the European Central Bank. The quantitative easing, which is printing money, basically increasing the availability, so reducing the cost of money in the market was his idea. And this is a sort of interventionist measure because you are increasing the money in the market. So people will have more money to spend. So it's a measure of stimulus. But at the same time, he remains a liberal economist, and even quantitative easing is not the kind of left-wing measure we would want to see, I think, as Arbury Road. Yeah. So going back to your question, like, it is difficult to say how long this government will last. It seems to have a really big, there was a poll, like 71% of the Italian population in this moment is in favor of the government. But at the beginning, a government always has a big consent. I think it will depend a lot on what they will be able to do. And in any case, it's going to be a government of compromise. So it will have to sort of compromise among all these parties. So really difficult to say how long it will last. In theory, a technical government shouldn't last too long. It's like a government you elect to go for a period before the elections, sort of, to prepare the elections.
It's a pretty interesting idea to have kind of a combination of several different parties or all the parties. And I guess, we're in an extraordinary moment in history. Maybe this is the feeling in Italy that this is the time to try something new and different like this? Or do people think, do Italians think that this is another economic solution to a political problem?
Yeah, in a way, like, is that, if I'm not wrong, or at least in recent years, is the third technical government we have. Now, the two before, one, the Dini government, was back in the 90s and was really short. And again, to prepare the elections after Berlusconi crashed in his first government. The second one is the Monti government, which brings us back to the economic crisis. And that all the Italian population, has a really bad memory of that period. That was basically the political party not taking responsibility for those austerity measures that had to be applied to the nation. So like I would say there is a lot of reluctance to like it's not a new solution in a way, something that was already used, and in the past it was used to put measures without like basically getting the responsibility for those measures. Again, like Monti is like accused of all the evil happened in Italy in the past 10 years, which is not fair. I think here the point is this government going to be political or economic? It is hard to say. Draghi for sure has the charisma and the profile to do more than being just you know, a technician. He can actually probably give a political lead. In terms of responsibilities of the other parties, so there was a miracle. First of all, Lega Nord is joining the government, and now they declare themselves as pro-Europeanist. Like,
do you want to tell us a little bit about? Do you want to tell us a little bit about them for the people who don't know?
So basically, Salvini said they are and they have always been pro-European, basically. So it's a miracle. There was actually a really good joke about, you know, Draghi in just a few days made the Lega Nord become pro-European. He might even manage to make the Democratic Party become left-wing. It is like as a critic to the Democratic Party sort of center more than left positions in the past years. No, but jokes apart, like so, yeah, you know, he has a really big, again, as we said, like is more liberal. So in all the right-wing spectrum of the Italian politics, that there is a lot of respect. And a lot of parties, Berlusconi, Forza Italia already give his support to Draghi, and Salvini did the same. Now, this is interesting because, like, in a way, they are taking responsibility for what is happening. Like, they are joining the government, so this might damage them to the next election. Of course, all this pro-European move, let's say, is like a matter of opportunism. But the other interesting thing is that he said that Lega Nord will, as point of his program, promote the adhesion to a European migration law. So basically, there is that evolution, I think, was in the air a little bit in the past couple of years, while these sovereignist parties, sort of far right, are becoming European rather than, so you start to talk about European citizenship and European migration law rather than Italian, you know, from Italy first to Europe first, in a way, as an evolution. Yeah, my comment, of course, in all of this is apart from the opportunism of Salvini, that before we had the government, which was center-left, with the five-star movements, which is a, you know, weird animals, difficult to say if it's left-wing, right-wing, but in any case, a progressive government. Well, now we have a government which embraces the entire spectrum and is going to be necessarily less progressive, less audacious. So in a way, what you were saying, like in a way, is going to do the interest of the elite. Difficult to see an ambitious measure coming out from this government, but let's hope I'm wrong.
Fingers crossed.
Exactly.
You never know. All right, so sticking with the theme of economic solutions to political problems, we had an important anniversary yesterday, 7th of February, and it is 29, oh, I'm getting old. 29 years since the Treaty of Maastricht was signed. Paco,
yeah, exactly. 29 years in which a lot changed. So I would start perhaps by saying what this Maastricht Treaty, which is, you know, always referred to,
tell us.
but like widely did, is usually spoken about in the context of euro, because was the treaty where, like, you know, they had been talking about a common European currency for some time before Maastricht. But Maastricht is the moment where they said, actually, no, let's do this. Let's have a common currency. And they started to set those rules to then create the euro. And I think in this, the political context of the period is really important. But I would like to talk about that in a minute. The other thing he did, though, like, is not only about the euro, they also set up a European citizenship. So for the first time, they overcame the national citizenship going towards the European common citizenship, and they also started to talk about common foreign policy, common security policy, security measure at the European level. Now, I think 29 years later, the first observation I would like, I think is we need to do is that of all these things, to me, the only thing that actually happened is the euro, in the sense that all the rest is still an idea, and we made some steps forward, but we are still here. I think citizenship is only partial still. Like there is a European citizenship.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's probably is technically a thing, the European citizenship, but I mean, people like you and I, Paco, we identify much more as European, let's say, than Irish or Italian or whatever. But it still doesn't feel like a proper, real citizenship. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. And I think there are, like, especially for who lived in more than one European countries, there are still a lot of obstacles for this full European citizenship to be a real thing. Like it's even just if you open an enterprise in one country rather than another, taxes, like there is a lot of confusion.
Bureaucracy.
Exactly. Bureaucracy is probably the worst problem. So like, I think this dimension of citizenship, yeah, you can move in all countries without, after Schengen, without any document, or with an identity card, but without your passport or whatever. But there is still a lot to go before, I would say, saying that we are European citizens in the same way as we are Italian or Irish or whatever.
Definitely.
And the other two things, foreign policy and security, also there, I think there is still a long way to go. So I think the first conclusion, in my opinion, is like 29 years later, there is still a lot. There is, in my opinion, an acceleration in the past 2-3 years, and especially after the new European election. The new Commission seems to be more ambitious in terms of integration. But there is still a long way to go. Now, in terms of, instead of the Maastricht Treaty, the part on the euro, I think one interesting consideration that people usually don't do is a bit of thinking about the Maastricht and about the euro in the historical context. So 1992, it means that what had happened 2 years before? Well, 3 years in 89.
Go ahead, tell us.
No, just the Berlin Wall, the fall of the Berlin Wall. Then in 1991, there is the fall of the Soviet Union. But the main point at the European level is that you have Germany unified.
Yeah.
And, this is, as much as we want to be really, we want to see the European history after the post-war period as a history of brotherhood and all the rest, the other governments were really scared. Like Germany was back to be united and was, the main economic power and political power in, caused 2 world wars. So there was a sort of apprehension. I remember, is always a good joke, the words of the Italian Prime Minister, Andreotti, who said, like, I love so much Germany that I prefer when there were 2 of them. So like, there was this apprehension. And in a way, Euro was seen as a way to ban Germany to the European institution. And to do so, they basically based the euro, like already here, they're talking about this, on the German, the Deutschmark, which was a currency, was really particular, was the strongest currency in the European Union. That this basically was made, of course, to make the conditions of adhesion for Germany really convenient. But, like you're helping Germany, like other countries, like, well, we could think about Italy, Spain, but even more Greece. Like you had a really weaker currency, which from one side was a problem, but from the other allowed you to export a lot. And so this was an advantage in terms of inflation you could make and exports and all the rest. So I think one of the focal points on this is like, once again, we see how the problem of the European Union is from the start, like when they are applying this currency, just taking into account the interest of the main economy, and a little bit like, there is not a real discussion of what is the rate we need to apply. in a way, I think it's not only about national interest, it's also about this sort of naive, in my opinion, conception there was at the time of economic development, neoliberal idea of keep on growing, so it wouldn't have been a problem in the future. They imagine that Greece or Italy would have been so rich at the time that this wouldn't have been a problem. But at the same time, shows you a little bit how there is not a real discussion there, and there is clearly things are not made for the interest of the entire community in a way, but of some countries have clearly more power. Mm-hmm. Of course, Germany and France in particular. So yeah, I think it's an important anniversary. Mm-hmm. It's still a really important step towards the European integration, but it's also important to talk about it. There is really little awareness, I think, of this in today's politics, and it's necessary to talk about this to then, being able now to find solutions to these problems, which are still with us, in my opinion.
It's really, I think you did something really important there, Paco, and it's something that people don't do enough, which is you need to give the historical context to these treaties, to the laws, to the legislation, to everything that comes in. Because you can't, people were skeptical of the Maastricht Treaty in 1992. People were also blindly optimistic about the Maastricht Treaty in 1992, thinking, now we'll get the euro, now we'll get closer, economically closer politically and everything like this. But the truth is, you don't know how effective a treaty or a piece of legislation is until it's been 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I think the story around the Maastricht Treaty becomes interesting when you get this background information that you've given us. I think it's a really important way to tell the story,
Yeah, exactly. And even more there is still the idea, I think, overall of this, economy alone will fix every problem, will create integration, while there was not political control over the economy. And as soon as there started to be economic problems with the 2008 crisis, we saw how this idea was foolish in a way. So much they believe this that, for the UK, for example, there was not even a procedure to leave the European Union, because they would have never thought at the time that a state would have left the European Union. So yeah.
Yeah, the Maastricht Treaty is a really good example of the strictness or the rigidness of a treaty coming back to bite Europe in the ass. It's the same. We're having the same issues with Hungary and Poland. They can keep joining together and vetoing everything. It was assumed that as the European Union progresses, the only way is forward. The only way is further unity and sharing of ideas. And you're completely right. It was just naive,
Yeah.
People got greedy too fast, and they didn't think about the treaties they were pushing through.
Yeah.
Anyway,
exactly.
That'll do on Maastricht for now, I think.
Yeah, I think enough European. Let's move to a bit more foreign policy.
We haven't talked about Trump in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Talk about Trump?
I missed him. It's a couple of weeks we don't talk about him.
So tomorrow, I believe, tomorrow the 9th is when the Senate trial starts to see if he'll be impeached by the Senate. So it's quite a historic trial for a number of reasons. It's the first time ever someone has gone on trial for impeachment twice in the United States. It's the first time ever that a president will go on trial while being out of office. So what do we know and what don't we know? We still don't know are there going to be witnesses. We still don't know how long the trial is going to last. We know the Democrats want to take it seriously, of course, because it's an extremely serious thing. But we also know that Biden doesn't want to spend the first entire month of his presidency getting wrapped up and having to focus on this goings on in the Senate.
Okay.
What we do know is that he's not going to be convicted. There's just no way. Most of the Republicans already came out and said they're going to back him to be acquitted. They needed a 2/3 majority, which seemed unlikely even at the best of times. So I think Trump is going to walk, and I don't see any reason why when he does walk, they don't bring criminal charges against him. You know, the man's as our favorite man Chomsky said, Paco, he is the worst criminal in human history. And when you listen to the reasoning, it's hard to argue, you know.
But how does it work with the all the pardons he granted? Like in case he's impeached, would those sort of retroactive being cancelled? Like, you know,
I don't think so.
do you have an
Actually,
idea?
I didn't look into that actually. As far as I'm aware, it wouldn't. My understanding of the pardons is you get pardoned and you're free.
And you're because Bannon is among them.
Bannon is among them. I mean, it's just the strangest list. Lil Wayne is among them.
Yeah.
I mean, how transparent do you have to be? And people still can't see it. A couple of months before the election, Lil Wayne tweets a photo of the two of them with their thumbs up. And on January then he gets pardoned for having a load of weapons on his tour bus. You know, Trump always has been extremely transparent. I honestly don't know how people can't see it.
Yeah, but another question, Dermot. I don't know if, like, again, otherwise these are things that we can check later. I was wondering, like, in case he's impeached officially, this will prevent him from running again, isn't it? Or
can't run for any public office in the future if he is impeached. This is really important because I don't know if you know what he's been doing at the moment, but he's gone down to Florida. He's set up an office with a seal virtually identical to that of the president, calling it the office of the former president, Donald Trump. You know, he's not going anywhere at the moment. The Republican Party haven't completely discarded him. They're probably about to acquit him in this trial, which leads me to believe he is definitely coming back in 4 years. You know, now we talked about the possibility of him grooming one of the kids maybe to go instead of him, but certainly not for president. They certainly wouldn't get that respect in the Republican Party. Yeah. But Trump is he's a political animal, and whether you want to admit it or not, he's a pretty good one, you know.
Oh yeah.
He certainly won't be going anywhere quietly. So it would be really, really beneficial if he got convicted in the Senate, just purely, even though it won't, okay, it didn't get him out of power early, it didn't stop the riot at the Capitol building last month, but it would prevent him ever getting back into that office, which is enough. That should be enough for the senators to convict him. But they're all career politicians, so they don't really care too much, some of them, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. No, yeah, it would be really important. Again, like, I think you said a really important thing there, like, is recognizing that the power of Trump, like the skills he has, like, in the political game. You know, in a way, like, it's something I always tell, like, when I speak with American friends, because we had, in a way, this experience in Italy 20 years before with Berlusconi, or 15, where, you know, everyone was portraying Berlusconi as a clown. And of course he was to a certain extent, but at the same time, he was also such a good, you know, charismatic speaker, and really, really, really smart. And nothing he did was random. Nothing of this was casual. Everything was built to create consent around him and polarize. He polarized really the Italian society for about 20 years. So yeah, in a way, like, I think the first step in order to fight against this kind of characters, really charismatic character, is recognize that they are charismatic and take them seriously, because, like, they are not serious perhaps, but the situation definitely is.
Exactly. I mean, the fact of the matter is, whether you care about politics or not, whether you follow politics or not, if you spend your entire life ignoring politics, the decisions politicians make affect every single one of us every single day. You know, you can't ignore people like Trump. And it also needs to be acknowledged that, okay, I mean, Trump got over 70 million people to vote for him.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't think like me and you. Maybe they have different beliefs. Maybe they have a different agenda. But they're 70 million people, just like we're people as well, you know. Yeah. His motivation to get people out and vote, albeit in using horrible means, and his rhetoric is appalling, but it works. And I mean, it was the perfect storm. He had a polarized nation. He managed to make them even more polarized. He got into power, made things even more polarized while in power, and then left kicking and screaming like a baby. It was a mess. But the important thing now, hopefully, even though I don't think it'll happen, is convict him and stop him from ever doing it again.
Yeah, but and the other thing, though, as Arbury Road, I think that is interesting for us, that is with Trump in the US, but also we can apply to Europe, is to understand why he had this power, why he had. So one thing, okay, he's charismatic, but of course there are other reasons why people are voting for him, why people find interest in these kind of far-right parties. You know, there is a lot of reasons why they do that. For sure, one of these is everyone feels less secure with globalization. And so in a way, I think it's time that we take responsibility. We just don't say, you know, they're stupid, but we start to say, okay, people are scared. People are voting for these people because they give them answers that the center and the left, the liberals, are not capable to give at this moment. And it's time to take these worries seriously, and I think try to recast. And that's what a little bit Arbury Road now is also trying to say, trying to give answers to these people and reframe the whole discourse, political discourse.
It's very easy to do what Trump does. It's very easy to divide people. It's very easy to demonize people who don't look like you, people who speak another language, people who come from different countries. The difficult thing is what we want to do, Paco, which is see how effective this negativity is. Be as effective as he is, but in a positive way, you know? That's our responsibility, as you said.
Yeah, it's a big challenge, but I really enthusiasm, like I have a lot of enthusiasm about this. Like, so it's going to be fun. We're going to make it.
Just going to mention as well, Paco, while we're on the topic of world leaders going on trial. Today is the first day of Benjamin Netanyahu's trial in Israel, the sitting prime minister. And some of the comparisons to Trump, you just couldn't make them up. Okay. He arrived the first day of the trial. He brought virtually nobody with him. Not many supporters, no supporting politicians, family, anything like this. He's called it a witch hunt to try and interfere with the upcoming elections. And this is a man who's been in power since 2009, and he's held power recently only because there have been 3 deadlocked elections. Okay. He's got 3 separate cases taken against him for corruption, which include bribes coming from major media outlets to essentially lie for him through the newspaper and through television. And yeah, again, now I'm not too well versed on the ins and outs of Israeli trials, but I'm sure he'll be acquitted too, just like Trump. I don't know. It would be nice to see them both go convicted, but I'd imagine they'll both be acquitted.
Yeah, I mean, the situation in Israel, as we know, is like always complicated. In a way, the pandemic increases this mess because, like,
well, it has affected that trial because, I mean, okay, we all know Israel is permanently tense. It's in a perpetual state of tension. This trial has been put off now for nearly a year. Always his Netanyahu's team always calling, oh, we need to delay it because of COVID, delay because of COVID, delay because of COVID. And it absolutely plays a role in that. When you've got a trial that's supposed to happen a year ago, it gets dragged on, it gets dragged out, it takes its toll on everyone. You know, it's not just the person going on trial. It takes its toll on everyone involved in the process. It will be an interesting one to see, but from what I know about Netanyahu and Israel, he's not going anywhere. And it's the first time in Israel a sitting prime minister has gone on trial. So some more history this week on the trial front.
Definitely, really interesting.
How are we looking on?
Cool. Do we have something else?
Well, we have to mention Myanmar, just briefly because we're running short on time. But as we all know, last week there was a military coup. So the government's been overthrown, and Aung San Suu Kyi has been taken into detention along with a whole host of other pro-democracy politicians. And things are probably going to get very nasty this week. It's the 3rd day of peaceful protests. The peaceful protests have involved protesters being shot with water cannons, being, you know, aggressively dealt with by military forces, by the police as well. And this is a country that has a history for deadly force being used against protesters. These military governments in Myanmar over the past have shown they are not above killing protesters. And they've gone one step further now. They've blocked Facebook. Today, they've called for Instagram and Twitter to also be blocked by internet providers. And this is just a blatantly clear attempt at creating disorganization amongst protesters. Pro-democracy protesters, of course, they're going to be using Facebook to coordinate their efforts, Instagram, Twitter. They're now being stopped from doing this. As if a military coup wasn't bad enough, they're just going into complete suppression of protesters, and I have nothing optimistic to say about Myanmar. I mean, it's great to see protesters out. I worry for them more than anything. I don't really see a solution in the near future there.
Definitely. Let's remember that Myanmar now is like one of the states where there was more of problems with different ethnic part of the population. There was basically
genocide.
Genocide, yeah, exactly. A part of the population, if I'm not wrong, the Buddhists now are in this case the sort of more aggressive component, weirdly enough.
Well, I know that I'm not too well versed now on the religions of Myanmar, but I know Aung San Suu Kyi. She moved back to, even before she moved back to Myanmar in the 90s, she got big into Buddhism. I know Buddhism is very big over there. It was the Muslim population there was a genocide committed against them last year, and the Rohingya, and she actually came under a lot of criticism because of that. Because I mean, all of what it is a complete genocide of the Muslim population. Whether it's Buddhism driving that aggression, I don't know. To me, that sounds like a complete paradox, because I think we all have this notion of Buddhism being very tranquil, peaceful, and understanding, let's say spiritual. But you absolutely could be right. It's a messy situation over there right now.
Yeah, I mean, as always, I think religion is sort of the excuse for political elites to enact repressive policies.
Yeah, it's been an excuse to kill other people for as long as history has been written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, one good side of globalization, if there is, there are some, is that we start to, I think, feel more aware of politics more at the global level. So even things like Myanmar nowadays are starting to be on the first page, of even European news, and that is a really positive thing, I think.
Yeah, it's good to see. I mean, I'd love to see some pressure from the EU, from the States, from the world powers to I don't know, see what's happening in Myanmar, get involved, at least put some pressure on, bring in some sanctions if sanctions need to be stricter, or whatever needs to happen, so that this military government can't just consolidate their power,
Yeah.
But Myanmar is a unique case. It's not like many other places, so we wouldn't dare suggest what they should do.
Difficult situation in any case. But yeah, I again, I think this public opinion can have an impact on this, what the Europeans do, by sensibilizing about certain topic, we can definitely pressure the European institution to act. And I think, we need to find, in the past years, there was really little of this, in terms of peace building in the world. Now, we definitely, I think, if we think about the role of the EU, shouldn't be a sort of US, heavy powers, but rather a soft power, soft diplomatic power, but favoring sort of situations of compromise. I think that is, in my opinion, what I want to see from the EU.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're not going to be winning any wars,
We don't have an army yet, so
we worked on that one.
Yeah. Good.
All right, let's leave it there, Paco. A pleasure as always. Everybody listening and watching at home, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, Instagram. Where else are we, Paco? Where else can they find us? Telegram?
Well, everywhere. Yeah, Telegram. Now we have a Telegram channel, newly made, which is active. Soon we will be also on Spotify. Like our podcast is going to be on Spotify and other podcast softwares. So like, yeah, everywhere basically.
Can't hide from us.
And TikTok, yeah.
And TikTok.
Where I made fun of myself.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you, Paco.
That was that.
Take care.